Paddy Power, sponsors of the Road to Cheltenham.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Road to Cheltenham. Ruby and I are really looking forward to talking about everything that happened over the weekend, because Ruby, the Dublin Racing Festival was fantastic. We had excellent racing also from Sandown and also from Musselburgh. We've got so much to talk about this evening.
And the Mayor's Hurdle and Ferryhouse that we can't forget either, Lydia. We're going to have to drop in. So we have a lot to talk about, so I think we better get moving.
Let's do just that, shall we? And start with the chasers. Those are the ones we're going to focus on first of all. The fully fledged chasers, will do the novices later on in the show. So Dublin Chase and Chacun Pour Soi, he was brilliant there. But there was a lot to take out of this race because it had implications not just for the Betway Queen Mother Champion Chase, but also for the Ryanair, because Min's performance, Ruby, it was really worrying. He ended up pulling up, and for me, he wasn't going from an early stage.
No, and it was always going to be a slightly different race than Christmas, and Notebook bucked out and went with Min up over the first, and everybody seems happy. But when they get to the second fence, Notebook on the outside attacks it, Min shortens up and pops it, and that's almost advantage Notebook. And from there on, Min never really got back into it. Now, the other horse that kind of loses his chance at this early in the race was Tornado Flyer. He makes a mistake at the second and again at the third, and you're kind of thinking, is he really a 2-mile chaser? Did he really jump well enough for it? Didn't look like it to me.
No, agree. But Min was never really going for me. He was outjumped by Notebook, but then he just, Patrick Mullins, to me, the body language, he was never happy.
No, and he looks like he's a hold to him, but that's almost like just keeping him on the bridle. Like Patrick didn't want to be going any faster, and then he kind of reaches for the sixth fence, and you're thinking, well, he's got away with that. What's he going to do at the next, which was the seventh? And he does the same thing again, but from further back and lands on it. He banks it. And that's the end of his contest. And yeah, to me, he looked like a horse that was never really happy and just wants to go further now.
I was really interested in the different tactics on board Chacun Pour Soi, because rather than rolling on from 3 out or from 2 out, this race developed rather differently.
It did, because Mark Walsh and Rachel Blackmore went to change that and see what Chacun could do. Rachel rolled from the start. Mark got involved away from the fourth last to the third last on Fakir Dudaris, and he pushes on to Notebook. And they leave Chacun, Paul Townend then sits in behind. Now, momentarily, I thought Paul's body language away from the third last, he was kind of flat to the boards, but he obviously wasn't. And Fakir Dudaris and Notebook go hammer and tongs to the second last, up the hill into the home straight, and they're both at it. And whilst neither slow down, Chacun just comes back on the bridle, gets the gap between them, quickens up going to the last, jumps it really well, and sprints away to the line. It was a really good performance. I mean, to watching it live, I thought it was very good, and when you watch it back, there's probably no reason to think any different.
That tactical versatility I really like. It means that Paul Townend can ride him in different ways depending on how the champion chase pans out.
Of course it is. You can go to the start with a complete open mind. If there's no pace, you can jump out. If something wants to go hard, if David Bass decides he's going to make this a really strongly run race in first flow, Paul Townend can sit in. It makes Paul Townend's decisions much easier going there, knowing he has an open book.
I don't see how Notebook turns this around with Chacun Pour Soi, but I was really encouraged by Fakir Dudaris.
Yeah, he ran a much better race. Look, and both were good novices last year. They just, at the 2-mile division, and even with Fakir at 3, he probably didn't stay, but at the 2-mile division, they're just not quite the top horses. They're just that grade below. They're good horses, but they're just not quite champion chase horses.
And Min, has anything emerged after the race?
No, he looks 100%, but I think he's done it in the past, and when I look back through his career, I can picture him really high in the air with a couple of fences in Punchestown. He definitely snapped at the second fence in the entry when he won the Martel Chase and was ponderous at the third. So he has thrown the odd strange jump in his career, and only they came back to back in this race.
Yeah, it's funny the different perspective, you from having ridden him and us sort of watching on, because to us he's just a very, very consistent horse. So this sort of comes as a surprise, and I find it a bit unnerving, immediately before his main target for the season, the Ryanair.
Yeah, there'll be confidence will need to be restored, but I think when horses that are as fast through the air as Min start getting higher, they're a bit indecisive.
And so they need to go a bit further.
Something. They're just getting a bit indecisive. They need, probably going a fraction slower and going a bit further.
Are you suggesting cheek pieces?
No. I'm just distance, actual speed.
Right.
Horses
Okay.
are like humans. They all slow down eventually.
Right. Let's compare Chacun Pour Soi and Energumen, because the novice, the stable companion, ran on the same day over the same trip, 2 mile one. They were remarkably similar, weren't they?
They were over the first. Even gallops. Me and Notebook are obviously going a bit quicker as they head to the second fence. All is pretty much the same. Into the back straight. At the fourth, the fifth, there's not a whole lot of difference. Both are jumping really well. The seventh fence, there's no massive difference, only that from the last home, Paul Townend probably asks more of Chacun Pour Soi than he does Energumen. Both races will run very similarly, and you see him from the back of the last of Chacun Pour Soi, where he keeps squeezing him, whereas Energumen coasts up. But when they go by the line, it's how quickly Chacun Pour Soi breaks back to a trot, and how long it takes Paul Townend to physically pull up Energumen. That to me was interesting. Now, what does it suggest? I don't know. But when you're looking at them, it looks like Energumen has far more running left in him than maybe Chacun Pour Soi has. Or, look, Chacun Pour Soi ran a bit quicker, so maybe I'm doing what I've always done, and that's overanalyze everything.
I suppose you're thinking Energumen even could go up in trip, and Chacun Pour Soi maybe he's just a bit professional. He's won the race, he's done it, he switches off.
Yeah, and he pulls up, but it looked to me like as they're pulling up, Energumen had more energy left.
It's interesting, that comparison of the two. Don't be fooled by the official times, which have Energumen as running a faster race than Chacun Pour Soi. In actual fact, Chacun Pour Soi is just that fraction faster of the two on their overall times. Right, let's move to Sandown. And this was a fantastic story. 11-year-old Native River coming back to win the rescheduled Cotswold Chase.
Yeah, and nothing we did. Well, the result maybe, but the actual shape of the race, nothing we didn't expect. Native River, Yala Enki, Bristol de Mai, they line up and they go hammer and tongs down to the first. Santini is flat to the boards and St. Calvados is dropped in to be settled. Strongly run race, what we expected. Away from the seventh fence, Santini has been niggled along. Aidan Coleman is having to work on him. Same at the back of the 8. And when they come up by the stands after jumping 11, the only horse that looks like he's going a little bit out of his comfort zone was the Bristol de Mai. It's just look at the loop in the rein in Darryl Jacobs' hand. We're used to seeing Bristol going along, taking Darryl. Here he's behind the bridle. When they get all the way back down to the water jump at 16, Santini is flat to the boards. Aidan Coleman's giving him a reminder. St. Calvados is just creeping into it at the first of the railways. When he falls, swing it onto the pond fence. Native River was brilliant through the railways. And when you swing it onto the pond fence, when the others are trying to catch up again, Yala Enki cracks. Bristol de Mai, to his credit, keeps on to Native River's tail. Santini just can't get involved. But from the back of the last, I love Native River. When Richard Johnson gives him a smack and he quickens up, he gallops all the way to the line and he hits the line strong. It was brilliant to watch. I thought it was a great performance from a wonderful horse. I know he's 11, but that was a brilliant effort.
It was a super day, and I like the reaction of Joe Tizard, the assistant trainer to Colin, immediately afterwards. But he was like a punter on a long losing run. Obviously, they've had a really difficult season. I don't think they had a winner in January, and he couldn't quite believe his eyes that Native River was going to win, even though everything he could see telling him that was going to happen.
Yeah, his jumping was great. His enthusiasm was there, and his stamina, which we know he has loads of. Lydia, he reminded me of the horse that won the Ladbroke Trophy, won the Welsh National, won the Gold Cup. He reminded me of that horse watching him on Saturday.
The cold hard fact, though, is that he's 11 years of age. The last horse who's won the Gold Cup that old or older was What a Myth, who was a 12-year-old in 1969, I think. I mean, it's even not since Cool Dawn won in 98 has even a 10-year-old won it. So he's going to have to go against the stats, isn't he?
Yeah, but sure, he probably doesn't know that.
They're there for a reason, though. You know, you can understand it.
I think they can. Of course, they are stats, and you can read that it is there, but they were broken before. The 5-year-old couldn't win the champion chase, but Mastermind did.
True. Frodon and Native River taking each other on up front. Who wins?
Native River. He won an entry, fences or no fences, and he'll win again. He will push Frodon really hard, and you'll have what Gold Cups traditionally are. It'll be end to end. And
I didn't think Santini's Gold Cup prospects were at all damaged by this one at Sandown. He doesn't like Sandown. He doesn't like that back straight of, staccato fences. That's not him at all.
So you're putting him up, are you?
No, but I do. No, I'm not. But I do think he's got a strong chance of placing. And you've mentioned the Welsh national for him before. He's entered in the national. I think some of the entries that Nicky Henderson is now making suggest that he's leaning that way. And explicitly, he would appear to be the second string in the stable now behind Champ for the Gold Cup.
Yeah, possibly. But look, maybe I'm slightly narrow in my way of looking at this, but he just doesn't travel well enough to win a Gold Cup. I just think he's always going to be getting into trouble.
And San Calvados, that's the first time I think he hasn't completed. That was a worry for me heading towards the Ryanair. I assume it will be Ryanair now and not Gold Cup.
It's hard to go there having not tested your stamina. I know he ran the King George, but he was way too keen. He was doing things right on Saturday, and he tipped up at the first of the railways. It would all depend on what Gavin Sheehan thought he had left in the tank as to which way he goes. But it'd be a big call to go for the Gold Cup now.
And Bristol de May, he's concentrating on the Grand National. He's been taken out of the Gold Cup. Let's talk about Irish Gold Cup, shall we? A small field, just the 5 of them, and Ken Boy dominated it.
He did from the word go, but we didn't expect any different with the shape the race was going to take. Ken Boy bucked out, and you get to the 5th fence. Everybody looks fairly happy where they are. Manila Indo sitting off Ken Boy, Delta Work, Storyteller, and Mellon is dropped in. But when they get to the 6th fence, Ken Boy makes a mistake in front, which he can do, and so does Delta Work, which he most certainly can do as well. And they got around to the first time. Manila Indo goes right and interferes with Mellon. But from there on, Ken Boy's having it, I won't say easy. He's put himself in the position, but he was definitely unchallenged. But what does it mean? Do you think Mellon loved being dropped in? I think when you watch him pinging the 10 fence and taking back, did that suit him? Probably not. Ken Boy, when he jumped to 14th, you see Danny Mullen starts to extend on him, and he gets away from Manila Indo, going to the 15th. Manila Indo gets on his outside, but Manila Indo and Ken Boy both meet the ditch on pretty similar strides, but it's the landing side that's more telling. The Manila Indo doesn't land galloping, whereas Ken Boy lands and gets away from the fence and gets to the bend with another length and a half of an advantage over Manila Indo. So you just wonder about Manila Indo's confidence and how he galloped away from the backs of fences. Jumps into second last, Manila Indo reaches for it, which we saw him doing at Christmas, which he'd done early in the race as well. And Ken Boy just keeps finding plenty in front and wins the race. So, but what did the race tell us? Manila Indo and Allaho ran in the 2 Grade 1 Irish chases this year. They were second and third in the RSA. They both finished 4th in the 2 Grade 1 Irish chases this winter at Leopardstown, the Savills, the Paddy Power Irish Gold Cup. The Storyteller is a very admirable horse who always runs his race. And Delta Work, I don't really know about Delta Work, but it just does leave question marks about Manila Indo.
I totally agree. Delta Work jumping not good enough, but I'm beginning to think that that's the same for Manila Indo. Just lacking confidence. He wasn't there when Rachel Blackmore needed him to be there. And I agree. I think the takeout from that is him and Allaho have both tried in the highest grade, and that has implications for the RSA form and potentially for Champ as well.
Potentially does. We'll see him at the weekend, fingers crossed, but it does have implications, yeah.
And you mentioned Mellon. Surely it's going to be reverting to more positive tactics, dropping back in trip in the Ryanair, and maybe the cheek pieces back on?
Yeah, but I can't see Willie doing that again, what he did on Sunday. But it is the 4th time, 3rd time definitely, could be the 4th time he has underperformed at Leopardstown in February. He
tends to switch it back on at Cheltenham, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. For whatever reason, I wish we knew, but could I see him in the Gold Cup? Not off the back of that.
No. And is Mellon a winner? Does he win at the highest level?
Form tells you he's not. He's won a maiden hurdle, a second season novice hurdle in the beginner's chase. He doesn't win that often, no.
No. I think you can see that in the closing stages of the Marsh Novices Chase last season, if you want to have a look back at that. Right, some news, because horses have been taken out of some of the key races at Cheltenham this week. 4 that I've particularly picked out for you, Ruby. I've already mentioned Bristol de May is going for the Grand National. Defi de Soy has been withdrawn from both the Champion Chase and the Ryanair. Waiting patiently, connections are waiting for Aintree with him. Presenting Percy goes to the Grand National instead. And Top Notch, although he's got some other entries, he's not in the Ryanair anymore.
No, clarity, I suppose, is what we have on all of those horses. Any shock? Not really. There was none of those horses. They're all good horses in their own right, but there was none of them that you would have thought were big fancies for those races this season. Maybe waiting patiently in the Ryanair, but the others were definitely having seasons that they would like to change.
Yeah, I can see Waiting Patiently, Ascot Chase and Aintree. I can see that being a more suitable call for him. A Plutar. This is good news for people who are holding anti-post slips about him for the Magnus Gold Cup. He's only in that now. He's been taken out of the Ryanair. We like certainty. That's what we like. Right, okay. We've been talking all the way through about what the implications for the key races at Cheltenham have been from the chases that we saw at the weekend. And I think the biggest shake-up came in the Ryanair chase market. So we've now got 3 of the front 5 towards the market who haven't completed on their latest start. So that'll be Min, St Calvados and Imperial Aura. And we've just discussed Mellon as well. And whilst I think he's got a great each way chance, for me, he's not the winner of the race. So I was really taken by that Fakir Dudari's performance. I do think he needs to step up again, but I think stepping back up in trip is going to suit him for the Ryanair, and I put him up.
Yeah, and look, he's 2.5 miles form with Sam Crow in the Drinmore last winter, where the race was still in the balance, suggested that would be ideal for him. He's obviously not quite been good enough at 2 miles, didn't stay 3 at Christmas. Yeah, can see where you're going there. I wouldn't give up on Min.
Mm-hmm.
I just wouldn't give up on Min. I don't think one bad day is enough reason to write any horse off.
Well, that might be an answer to Mango Chutney's question. He's been in touch and says, the week before last, Ruby recommended a bet on Min and said he'd ride him over Allaho. Post Dublin Racing Festival, who would Ruby ride now? Brackets. Can add 3rd selection if wishes and ride this obs. Not that you're indecisive. That's not what Mango Chutney's saying.
I found it hard enough to pick between 2 now, Mango, without trying to put a 3rd one in. No, I'd stick with, at the minute, if I was making that decision, I would have been in a position where I could school him in, and that would inform my decision. So until I schooled him, if I was riding him anyway, I wouldn't give you an answer till I had to. But I'd still be with Min, providing he schools well between now and then.
Now, there's a performance at the Dublin Racing Festival that has really got you talking, and that is Kilcruit's performance in the Great.
Hang on now. I have to correct you, Lydia. And this for everybody listening, because this does mean something to my wife. The horse's name is Kilcrut. And Kilcrut is Mrs. Mullins, Maureen Mullins was born. Kilcrut. And she would be my wife's aunt.
Thank you. Right. No, I genuinely thank you. Right, so Kilcrut, everybody. Yeah. Kilcrut. He was fabulous looking in the Grade 2 bumper. Charlie Sharp has tweeted us, and thank you very much for getting in touch, everybody. He said, I cannot wait to see the showdown between Sir Gerhard and Kilcrut. Could be the battle of the festival. Could be the battle of the festival. But we have some other debate. Neil Tolson says, I've not seen any sectionals, but it appeared they set up at a good pace, Neil. And then there was a pace collapse with Kilcruit just keeping on going. There may have been an overreaction to the performance. Time will tell. John H. says, Kevin O'Ryan said that. Makes no sense to me. The horse raced midfield and looked like it could go round again when everyone else is legless. It's not like he was held up and then picked them off. I'm a bit more in Neil's camp. I think that maybe the margin of victory was exaggerated, whilst I think this was a good horse.
Yeah, but if you're the closing sections of a race are very important to the winning distance of any race, and the horses that get tired will lose much more ground at the finish. Regardless, it's when they get tired they stop. It's no different to yourself running to the shop, and if you go too fast, the shop seems to get further away rather than get closer. And that's what happened. They did go a fraction fast. The pace was very strong, and the ones in front did collapse. And Patrick Mullins probably never asked Kilcrut to go any faster at any stage. He just maintained the one pace. And whilst I'm sure he was thinking, turning out of the back and wondering and worrying, would he get to the ones in front? By not moving when they collapsed, he was able to coast by and keep going. Now, he never asked Kilcrut to go. And that's, I suppose, the question. Could he have went? We'll never know. Until we'll know in Cheltenham when he gets to Sir Gerhard. Could he have went? I think he maintained. I'm not even sure he maintained the gallop he was at. I would say he slowed down considerably as well.
Yeah. If anything, I would be marking up the second, let's be clear about it, who has now seen the backside of Kilcrut and Sir Gerhard. Sir Gerhard was a little bit closer to him, and that's what I think. I think that Kilcrut is a little bit flattered by the margin of victory in this race, which isn't to say he's not a very good horse.
Oh, I'd say he is a good horse, and Patrick was Willie wanted Patrick to ride Ramilez, Patrick was adamant he was riding Kilcrut. I know Patrick really likes him.
It's winding up to be a decent bumper. I'm sure we'll return to the this subject later on in the series, but that was certainly whetting our appetite for the champion bumper at Cheltenham. Now, the novice chasers, and we've already had a sneak peek at what Energumen managed in the Irish Arkle, but that is where we are going to start this section because it was a good race, a deep race, and I think we learned plenty, Ruby.
Oh, we did. There was so much to like about it. Lydia, look, it was a strongly run race. Energumen booked out and went, and don't think the others sat off him because he was getting it handy. As you saw from the section or the split screen earlier, he went a good gallop. That's why he's in front. At the second fence, as they land, you can see Jack Kennedy having to squeeze Felix Jeze and send him forward, who made the running at Christmas. At the third fence, this is a real interesting part. Franco Deporte catches the top of it, out in his nose, does the splits, does really well to stand up. Good effort from the horse. You talk about novices taking soft falls. Well, this fella knows where to put his feet and save himself. So
Absolutely.
I'd be giving Franco Deporte 10 out of 10 myself for that.
I thought he did really well to get back into the race at all after a mistake of that magnitude.
Me too. I'd have given him a pat if I was up on his back for saving himself. Round the corner to the fourth fence, and it's the first time you see Energumen going to his right. He gets a bit high and jumps out to his right. Now, it is the only fence on the track that's taken on any sort of a bend. It's not even on a bend. It comes off a bend. Down to the sixth fence, Felix Jeze jinks left. Jack Kennedy's lucky to stay on him, but on the right hand side of the screen, Energumen has gone quite high in the air. By the time they get to the seventh fence, Star for Star, he's flat to the boards and beaten. He definitely wants better ground. The soft ground made him look like he couldn't go at all. They were all jumping quite well after that. And when they got across to the second last fence, Rachel Blackmore, who had slightly changed tactics on a more energetic Captain Guinness, is moving up to take on Paul Townend and is rolling the dice. But unfortunately for her, Captain Guinness catches the top of the second last and knuckles over on his head. And I think he probably would have been a really good second myself. I thought he was a much more energised performance from him. He looked more alive and a threat to Energumen than he had done at Naas. And Energumen then quickens off the bend, pings the last. And to be fair to Franco Deporte, from being on the ground at the third fence, he got himself back into a challenging position. Black Bow ran a much more creditable race as well. Second and third have run really well. I do think Captain Guinness would have finished second, but the winner was spectacular.
I tend to agree with all of the reading of that race. My questions would be, Captain Guinness, are errors a worry now? Would you go to Cheltenham on the back of that?
Yes, I would. Yeah, definitely. Off the back of a fall, very unlikely to fall the next time. Barry's just steering for lunch.
Okay. Unaccepted. You didn't mention him. He just couldn't get involved, could he? Was he fit? Because it's obviously he'd had quite a long layoff.
Yeah, he should have been. Yeah, I wouldn't be worried about that. Yeah, he could come on from it, but it was a big jump up for him. Even when he did over hurdles, won on over fences into a Grade 1 against horses with more experience, he'll definitely have improved from it.
Now, where do you expect Franco Deporte and Energumen to go at Cheltenham? Because I've been putting up an argument that I'd like to see Energumen in the Marsh rather than the Arkle. Now, clearly there is no easy option. You've got Envoy Alan in the Marsh, you've got Shishkin in the Arkle. That's not the reason why I was looking at the Marsh for him. It's more that thing that you mentioned about the fourth fence. He does go out to his right. I'm just worried about the second last in the Arkle, where they sort of swing off on that tighter track into the second last, just off a left-handed bend, whereas, as you've explained previously, the new course is a much more of a galloping track.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. Keep making the argument. I think
it's futile.
I think can you see Willie Mullins after going back from 2.5 to 2 mile novice chases, going back up? I can't. Keep making the argument. I know I won't be making the argument. I will be having different discussions. I won't be wasting my energy on that one.
Okay. It was just a thought. And Franco Deporte, where would you go with him?
I'd say soft ground definitely helped Franco Deporte. It was a really good run. He could go. I'm not saying he will. Don't anybody jump on the bandwagon because I'm thinking he might. But he could go up and trip.
Yeah, I quite like a strong pace 2 mile for him. See, the other way.
I'll give you Willie's number. Do you want to?
It just blocked me. He just blocked me, Ruby. Let's move on to the Flogas, shall we? And this was a superb performance from Monkfish. Now, he was facing many of the same rivals, including Late Exhibition, who I think was not on his game this day.
No, he probably wasn't. And I think you can see that from early on. I think it was a brilliant performance by the winner, and I love the winner, who jumped really well, went to go gallop, but even away from the second fence, you can see Brian Cooper is squeezing Latest Exhibition that early to keep up at the pace, with a couple of fallers at the fifth, Semble and McAlooney. And then, when they get away from the sixth fence, Asterion Forlange is the one to be looking at. He's alive and in Patrick's hands. He jumps straight at the 7, but even though he's straight at the 8, it's still an awkward enough looking jump. It doesn't look flowing or natural for him. To the 4th last, Janadel, who'd been travelling well, he just guesses and takes a pretty heavy fall. They were all good at the 3rd last. Again, at the 2nd last, Asterion Forlange was the one my eye was drawn to. He looks to be a fraction clumsier, whereas Monkfish just has to pick up and open up, and away he goes and away he goes. He just looked in a different league to the opposition, and we know he's not that far ahead of Latest Exhibition, so you can see why he's underperformed. They've met twice before. There hasn't been that big a gap in it. There shouldn't have been as big a gap as there was on Sunday. As for Asterion, he was good and straight at the last, but I'm not really sure where you go with him. And the one horse I mixed actually in that was away from the 5th fence, around that area of the track. Andy Dufresne seemed to come really alive under Mark Walsh, and almost like he over-raced in the middle part of the race and didn't give himself as much chance to get home. But look, Monkfish looked in a different league to the opposition, and he's going to be hard to beat in Cheltenham too.
He'll be going back up in trip for the Brown Advisory, as now the race formerly known as the RSA is now sponsored.
Yeah, look, I don't see it as a problem. Albert Bartlett winner, won over 3 miles in Leopardstown at Christmas. Someone I'm sure will tell me that 3 miles plus isn't an issue for Stowaway. I just can't think of that many horses that have won beyond 3 miles. But look, he looks a Gold Cup horse, doesn't he?
He's already favourite for the 2022 Gold Cup. Ridiculously.
Ridiculously, but he's a fabulous racehorse.
Yeah, he's odds on for the Brown Advisory Festival Novices Chase. Let's move on to the Scilly Isles, because again, this was a really interesting race, and I felt so sorry for Chamblou. He outjumped everything in that field and got mugged. He was, but the winner, I suppose, is the horse to watch as much as the one that gets mugged. And over the first couple of fences, Sporting John was just so much slower than Chamblou or Painted Dream or Messer des Obo, and even Dame de Compagnie. But yeah, you're right, Lydia. Chamblou's jumping was a joy to watch. Sporting John was quite deliberate at the 5th fence as well. And I think when they faced downhill to what's the first in the 3 mile chase, that fence down past the stands, number 7, I think, in this race, it's just how easy Chamblou, Hitman, how easy they're finding it, the jump and the travelling. And poor old Sporting John is flat to the boards at the back. But as Sandown often can happen, it turns into a bit of a slog. They all were pretty good at fence 9 and 10. Great to watch them jumping those fences, novices attacking them like older horses. The 12th, Hitman, just caught the top and knuckled over. He was unlucky. He brings down Dame de Compagnie, but Chamblou's jumping again extends his advantage, but it's just a soft ground, isn't it? It just sapped him. It just dragged it out of him, and it's allowed Sporting John to warm up. His jumping got better as he went along, and he was good at the 3rd last, but Chamblou out jumps him 2 out. Chamblou out jumps him again at the last, but stamina kicks in. Now I could see your Honourable Franco Laporte and Enner Gamine. To me, Sporting John wants to go to the Brown Advisory, and Chamblou stay at the Marsh. I agree with half of that. He's short of Sporting John for the Marsh. You know, that first fence comes up really quickly. I can see him getting behind and out of position, and to me it screamed, I want to go to the Brown Advisory. I agree with that. I just wondered about Chamblou, whether I'd be tempted to hang on for Aintree and maybe go for the Mildmay over 3 mile 1 even at Aintree, or the Manifesto over 2.5. I know Hitman is going there because with a young horse, Paul Nicholls doesn't want to go to Cheltenham off the back of a fall. Yeah,
look, and definitely that's what Paul is thinking. It's always about the future as well, but if I was Harry Skelton, I'd be pushing down towards the Marsh with Chamblou. The way he jumps, a lot of jumping in the Marsh. I'd be having me go anyway.
Okay. Now time to talk about the juveniles, and the Spring Juvenile Leopardstown has really got you talking. We're going to start off with a question from @Ben_Simpo.
Hi Lydia, hi Ruby. My question this week is, what would they say to the notion that the Triumph Hurdle historically has been more suited to staying types rather than champion hurdle types. Undoubtedly, Zanahiyr has been the most impressive juvenile this year. However, I feel that Quilixios probably fits the mould more. In recent years, Show Royale and Saldier are example of champion hurdle types that have finished down the field, albeit less fancied than Zanahiyr.
That raises some interesting questions for me.
Yeah, it does. I'm not sure Saldier is a fair comparison. He was a maiden going to the Triumph, was he? No, he'd won in Gorham Park, sorry. He'd won a maiden hurdle. So yes, sorry, Ben_Simpo, that is a fair comparison. What do I think? Yeah, stayers do win Triumphs, there's no doubt about that. But I do think that since the Fred Winter has been introduced, that the best horse now wins the Triumph as well. The best horse on the day, whereas it was a lottery with 30 runners. I think now it is a genuine Grade 1 race, and I think the Fred Winter has been a great addition to the festival for that reason. What do I think? Having watched them all, I'm still in the Zanahiyr camp. What he did at Fairy House in December blew me away. Look, on Sunday, St. Sam went a good gallop, and his jumping was good, and he stretched Quilixios. And I think the most important parts of the race are the third last, where Quilixios makes a mistake and St. Sam looks to have him stretched. Then St. Sam missed the second last, and like a pendulum, it just swung so quickly in Quilixios' favour, and he was much the better horse from there home. Thought St. Sam kept at it well, so did Bustleton. Humidor never ran his race, jumped okay for Humidor, not great, but okay for him. But it probably came too soon for him after his fall anyway. But the winner was very good, there's no doubt about it. But me personally, I would be in the Zanahiyr camp. But I think it is worth noting that Quilixios isn't a novice, whereas Zanahiyr is.
Yes, because that could have implications. You're coming round to this second entry that Zanahiyr's got, haven't you? You see it as a threat for the first time that Zanahiyr could run in the Supreme.
Well, I think it's a possibility. If Gordon Elliott wants to split what look to be two exceptional juveniles, his only option is to take Zanahiyr out of the Triumph, because it is the only place Quilixios can go, bar he puts some supplements him into the champion hurdle or one of the open races, but he's not a novice.
No, and Gordon was talking afterwards about Quilixios being a real staying type, and I do see where people are coming from. I think the task of the Triumph might bring Zanahiyr and Quilixios closer together than it might do in other venues where there is more reliance on speed, where I think Zanahiyr's got more of that. I think Zanahiyr's the more brilliant horse, but I think Quilixios is going to be advantaged by lots about the Triumph. Simon Curry is saying, fast run race as the Triumph normally is, you'll need a sturdy stayer who can see out the 2 miles best of all. Quilixios, first run back for Munson, surely improvement assured. How would Ruby ride him to nullify Zanahiyr's speed? I
wouldn't. I'd ride Quilixios to his strengths. I wouldn't be riding him to do anything to Zanahiyr. I would be riding the horse I was riding to its strengths and let the opposition look after itself.
Yeah, Sam, I was going to say, I knew as I was asking that question on your behalf what the answer for Ruby was been. You've stressed this all serious, haven't you?
To be honest with you, it's hard enough to ride one horse without trying to ride somebody else's as well.
Stephen Allpress says, Quilixios will not get Zanahiyr off the bridle.
Maybe he won't, but Gordon Elliott's team, all the vibes are that they can't really split them, so they're lucky to have the two of them.
Mark Beaver says, I was more impressed with the second horse, St. Sam. Got Boodle's Fred Winter written all over him. What are your thoughts, Ruby? They're going to go Triumph, aren't they?
I would have said so. I would be surprised if Willie Mullins headed to the Fred Winter with him. He'd be high up in the weights, which wouldn't be a negative, but I'd be surprised if he did.
The Racing Guide agrees with Mark. I agree. He ran a cracker in second, stayed on it again after the last. I thought he was my idea of a Boodle's Fred Winter horse until he ran so well in the Spring Juvenile. I suspect he's going to be rerouted after that. Bustleton, maybe, for the Boodle's Fred Winter?
Yeah, could be, yeah, definitely.
Okay, let's talk about what happened at Musselburgh. 5 and 20, the filly trained by Donald McCain. She made all to win there.
Yeah, and she was good and sharp, and I loved her jumping. If you watch her at the 4th hurdle, really slick and quick, and again at the 5th, and even at the 6th where she hits it, how fast she is away from it. Now, down into the home straight, she looks the best filly. Brian Hughes is riding her. A bit of a mistake at the second last. She looks all over the winner, but the run-in looked long enough for her, and I could see why Donald McCain was saying Aintree rather than Cheltenham. Could you see her climbing the hill in Cheltenham? Probably not. Very smart filly, 5 and 20. But I could see why the connections were rooting for Aintree over Cheltenham.
Yeah, I can see Aintree suiting her really well. Coming back to the spring very briefly, what happened to French Seal? Because he was all set to be making his debut for Willie Mullins, but didn't actually turn up.
Didn't chance him. He worked this morning, actually. I saw him working. He didn't. He just felt he didn't have him long enough to know exactly what he had, so he didn't run him.
Straight to Cheltenham?
He could have the option of the race Burning Victory won in Fairyhouse last year. It's on Fairyhouse the 27th. I think it's 20 days before the Triumph. He would have that option. He may go there. He may go straight to Cheltenham, but he did work this morning and he looked well.
Okay. There was a fabulous edition of the Irish Champion Hurdle on Saturday. It was Saturday, wasn't it, Ruby, or was it Sunday?
It was Saturday. No, it was. Yeah, definitely Saturday.
Thank you. But unbeaten run still for Honeysuckle 10 times now. I think she's won 6 times at the highest level, her second Irish Champion Hurdle win, and sweet music to our ears after this. Connections are saying it's the Champion Hurdle next. Is this performance that we're about to analyse now of a Champion Hurdle epitante challenging standard?
Yes, and I can see why they have decided to do it this year and not last year, because this year you could leave Leopardstown if you owned or trained or rode her and think we have a cracking chance in the Champion Hurdle. Last year you were leaving having just beat Petit Mouchoir in a bit of doubt. But this year she was, I thought, spectacular. Now it was slowly run, the first furlong. It was steady up to the first hurdle, but she absolutely, for the first time ever that I saw her, she was low, quick and accurate over the first hurdle. Like Epitante, it was that kind of a jump. Bit high at the second, but straight away at the second hurdle your eye was drawn to Sharjah. He wasn't travelling with the same gusto he did at Christmas. Slower ground, he wasn't going quite as easy. And at the third hurdle she was brilliant again, Honeysuckle, where she's really quick and low. Now the race built from the winning post, not early enough. It was building up, but I was taken with how Honeysuckle took Rachel Blackmore to the 5th hurdle and jumped up past Petit Mouchoir before they crossed the road. And the road is a guide in Leopardstown, and you never really make a move before the road in Leopardstown. But Honeysuckle wanted to go, Rachel let her go. It's a mile from home, and she's starting to let this mare stride, and straight away she has good horses on the back foot. Petit Mouchoir, Abacadabra, Saldier couldn't go with them. Sharjah, Saint Ra, she just stretched them from a long way out. Great jump at 3 out. Rachel centre again, round the bend to the second last, brilliant at the second last hurdle, and she quickens again. It just kept building and building, and it was magical to watch her, I thought. And even from so far out, I was standing there watching it thinking, hang on Rachel. I'm thinking this could stop, but no, she was on the mare getting the feel, and that's the feel she was giving her, and she just kept letting her go, and she went faster and faster all over at the last. She lets her pop it, and away she goes again. I thought it was a great performance to watch. I think Abacadabra, for the first time, I'm going to praise the horse. I thought he ran a cracker. I think he could be placed in the Champion Hurdle. I'm not sure, he's a bit of a melon, not sure he'll win, but he could run in the money. Sharjah, it's not his track. I know it's Leopardstown, but you're out closer to the fences this time of year, and that's a big difference for him.
Explain that, the difference for Sharjah with the track.
It's definitely from before the third last hurdle. When you get on to the inside in Leopardstown. Now the inside in Leopardstown is a very good racecourse. It's not tight. It's just the outside track is so much more galloping, and definitely the quicker track towards the inside seems to suit Sharjah, and the ground is usually drier in there as well. That suits Sharjah, I think, a bit better. It's not as deep in there. When you're out in the middle track, it's where the flat racing is. It's where it's watered in the summer. It definitely rides deeper. And I think soft ground is a big help to Honeysuckle. But our performance on Sunday was the first time I looked at her and thought, wow. Even though she's unbeaten, I did walk away from Saturday thinking, oh my God, that's epitante, that's Annie Power, that's proper.
We've had a question from Bruno_Wigan, who says there were some superb performances at the weekend, including Honeysuckle, but will she and the other winners at the Dublin Racing Festival be vulnerable if the ground is good to soft at Cheltenham? It normally starts on what they've raced on this season so far.
Yeah, I think she definitely handles soft ground and appreciates soft ground, but she did look faster than I ever saw her before. Maybe we didn't give her enough credit as a novice. She did win a mile 7.5 in Thurles on dryish ground in December one year. So maybe that was a much lower level. But the other day, I just thought she looked fast. She looked sharp, and we know she stays. Yeah, I know if even me, Lydia, who would be sending horses to the races, they would win, would have been got off her on Sunday and said to William Mullins, this could win the Champion Hurdle.
The way she won the Irish Champion Hurdle, did that remind you of Faheen at all?
Yeah, it's where you go. I have the confidence in the feel of the horse you're getting. I didn't ride too many horses in Leopardstown that you let stride before you cross the road, because it's so far. And I did it on 14, but he was in against Arctic Fire in Nicholas Canyon, and he was 14. But to have the confidence in your horse to up the ante that far from home, like if you were dropped in Leopardstown, you wouldn't move till you crossed the road to try and creep after horses to sneak into a race, let alone up the ante on the front end before you cross the road. I think it was a hell of a performance. Okay,
so from what you were saying about the track, I get the idea that the outer track that they were racing over 2 mile hurdles at the weekend is more like the new course, and the inner track is more like the old course at Cheltenham. So the Champion Hurdle is obviously at the old course at Cheltenham. So can you see the distances between Sharjah and Abacadabra getting closer to Honeysuckle?
They probably can, but and it's a good way of describing it actually, the tracks, but they probably can. But I think with that, Rachel Blackmore will also be a little bit, do something a little different as well. She won't let them, and they wouldn't saunter to the first of the Champion Hurdle anyway, but she didn't mind the race sauntering up to the winning post before they went to gallop. Whereas if she's worried about that, she would make sure it's from the start that they're going quick.
I agree with you that her jumping also looked quicker, apart from the second and the fiddle at the last. And of course, Epatante, who is known for how good her jumping is, the last time we saw her, now admittedly there was probably a problem, Nikki Henderson has mentioned her back, but she wasn't jumping well.
No, but she did that in the Mayor's Novice Hurdle as well, Epatante. She jumped like she did at Christmas in the Mayor's Champion Hurdle, in the Mayor's Novice Hurdle when she was a beaten favourite. I think she was favourite. So Epatante can jump brilliantly when she's right, but I think Honeysuckle has learned to jump brilliantly. She was always a little high and a little keen. She's clean. She's definitely got lower, slicker, braver, and I loved it.
They're now pretty much joint favourite at the top of the market. How do you see this race?
So I suppose with the uncertainty of Epatante and her last performance, are we overlooking Silver Streak? Possibly. But Honeysuckle for me.
Okay, good stuff. Right, news. Marie's Rock inevitably out of the Champion Hurdle. Call Me Lord is out of that and the Stayers Hurdle. Somerville Boy doesn't go for the Stayers, and Kalashnikov isn't making the switch to hurdles either. Just a bit of news to keep you up to date.
Yep.
Fine. Okay. Tumbleweed. And then we have Some for Someone and Goshen. Obviously, they were meant to be clashing at the Contenders Hurdle at Sandown. It was an all-chase card instead. Does that leave them looking at the Kingwell? And it's a bit of the late show, isn't it, for the two of them?
It is, if you're adamant you have to have a run. I think both Tom Simmons and Gary Moore are more than capable of bringing a horse straight to Cheltenham. And I'd say even with Goshen, Gary will be more not worried, not concerned either, will be more intent on his well-being, how the horse is, what he's shown him at home. So look, if they don't get a run, they don't get a run, but they could go to Wincanton if they so wished. Song for Someone, I just get the feeling Tom Simmons is looking at entry anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So do I. I don't think that Cheltenham is in any way at the top of his list. The horse will run at the Kingwell, and if it's Cheltenham next or Aintree next, I think the horse is going to be telling him that. Right. Lots of calls for Concertista to follow the mares to the Champion Hurdle, follow Epatante and Honeysuckle there, rather than go for the Close Brothers Mares Hurdle. What's your thought?
No, I think you have to, me, being the person I am, you earn a run in the Champion Hurdle. They have to show you something that says to you, this is the Champion Hurdle horse. I don't think Concertista has shown us that. I think Honeysuckle showed it to us last week. That's why I would go there. I think Concertista's form is a good bit behind Honeysuckle's, and therefore I would be running her in the Mares Hurdle.
I mentioned her alongside Dame de Compagnie and Ellie May as well. They're both still in the Mares Hurdles. Given Dame de Compagnie was taken out of the Scilly Isles, I know she has entries in the Marsh and the Brown Advisory. Might she run over hurdles at the festival, do you think?
She could, and Ellie May is in at Naas at the weekend as well over fences in the, can't think of the name of the race, but she's in a 2-mile chase, Opera Hat, in Naas on Sunday. So Ellie May will go there and time will tell, but Roxana could be the interesting one. Be interested to see what Dan Skelton does. Will he still go at 3 miles, or will he be looking at Honeysuckle gone out of the Mares Hurdle? Benny de Jure probably going there first time. Concertista, Be interesting to see what Dan does.
You always argue that you should run the horse in the race that's most suitable for Roxana. Is Roxana not better at 3 miles than shorter?
Did Roxana not win a mare's hurdle?
She very luckily did, yes.
Did she win?
She very luckily did. But is she better at 3 miles?
I rest my case, Your Honour.
This prosecution is not resting. Is she better at 3 miles?
Did she
I
win?
ask you again.
Did she win at 3 miles?
Yes, she has won at 3 miles at Wetherby.
Wetherby, yeah. Great, what?
Yeah, I sense I'm not going to win this argument. Let's talk about Ken Boy and the Storyteller, because they could be heading to the Stayers Hurdle next. It's always been the plan for the Storyteller and from Gordon Elliott, and I really understand that. But Willie Mullins, asked about will Ken Boy have a third go in the Gold Cup, said Stayers Hurdle. Yeah,
possibly. And time will tell, I suppose. But like you don't see it in the Gold Cup. He ran poor last year's Gold Cup. He's given him the option. Maybe he will. Time will tell. But or maybe he'll just ride him forward in the Gold Cup. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not sure his jumping is good enough for the...
I think Willie Mullins thinks the same as you. But that's why he's in the Stayers Hurdle. Now,
Willie said it before, hasn't he, this move? He's won the Irish Gold Cup with Rule Supreme, who went on to finish third in the World Hurdle, that's the old name for the Stayers Hurdle, behind Ingoldsdriva. Let's have a bit of nostalgia and remember what it was like for Rule Supreme to win the Irish Gold Cup.
They're coming down to the final fence down the Hennessy Cognac Gold Cup. They're stride for stride. Rule Supreme, B for 7. Rule Supreme, B for 7. Pecked on landing. And Rule Supreme is going to turn over the odds-on favourite here on the run up towards the finish. A Fowler went third in the Lexus, but running up towards the line, it's going to be a big win for David Casey. Out for a long time with a broken leg, but this will certainly ease the pain. A big win for Rule Supreme and Willie Mullins.
But I think, Lydia, by showing Willie that piece of footage, not that he'd be watching this anyway, but I'm sure someone will tell him, that the last time he brought a horse back from the Irish Gold Cup to the World Hurdle, it didn't work.
Yeah, only third. At the moment, obviously, I'm just trying to get over the idea that Willie isn't watching. But yeah, I take your point. I think the Storyteller shouldn't be the price he is comparatively to Cider Burley in the Stayers Hurdle market.
He's a wonderful horse.
Yeah, he is.
A wonderful horse.
Yeah, he is great. And he routinely mixes hurdles and fences. The difference between Rule Supreme, of course, was that he had quite a recent run over hurdles, hadn't he, prior to winning the Irish Gold Cup? He'd been running over hurdles prior to Christmas, whereas Ken Boy hasn't run for seasons over hurdles, has he?
I'd say as ordinary a jumper as you think Ken Boy is, Rule Supreme was a good bit worse.
I remember fondly, but I do remember. Right, last word on the Stayers Hurdle. There's some chasers that are still in the race. Champ is still in the race, Vindication and Next Destination. Now, Nicky Henderson has said it is very, very, very much the backup plan for Champ, just in case his jumping doesn't come right when we see him next before the Gold Cup.
Yeah, it's funny when I know he fell in the dipper, but I don't think Champ is a poor jumper, and it doesn't bother me. I think he's loads of scope, and I think he'll be fine. I think obviously new rider, Nick will be riding him this weekend, or whenever it's on. Hopefully this weekend, but I wouldn't be worried about his jumping.
Just the novice hurdlers to go, and we've already talked about Quilixios's performance in the spring, but I think, Ruby, it's going to be really informative to compare his win with that of Appreciate It. They ran on the same day over the same course and distance.
And it's definitely going to give the Quilixios fans more hope when they watch this. Look, if you look from the start, Appreciate It gets to the first hurdle just in front of the juveniles, up past the winning post all the way to the second, and Appreciate It, or the novice hurdle, is just in front of St. Sam. But Hador is running keenly, and he gets onto the back of St. Sam, who by the time they get to the third hurdle, which is a short run from the second, they're in front. They've just gotten to the front of juveniles, but around that long bend to the fourth hurdle, the juveniles build up a considerable lead, a couple of seconds of a lead by the time we get to the fourth hurdle. They hold that over the fifth and the sixth hurdles, and when they get across to the second last, Quilixios is coming to St. Sam, but they're still a considerable bit in front of the novice hurdle with Appreciate It in front. Round the home turn, up to the last hurdle, Quilixios is still considerably a nice distance in front of Appreciate It, but they hold it all the way from the last hurdle to the line. I think Quilixius and St. Sam ran really impressive times, and Bustleton for that matter, compared to the novice hurdle, which was probably run more, what's the word time people would use, optimum.
Yeah, I think it was quick early, and then it was a really good even pace. I think Paul Townend was in absolutely the boss position from the third hurdle onwards, wasn't he?
He was, and I think when you look at the novice hurdle then in depth, he's always in a good position. Of the opposition, Master McShee jumped right at the first hurdle, which we hadn't seen, or I hadn't noticed prior to that. At the second hurdle, Ballyadam has a guess at it, but he's quick. He just guesses, but he was quick at it. And if you look at the fifth hurdle, Hook Up at the very back makes a mistake at the fifth hurdle, which is just before they cross the road. Away from the third last hurdle, they're all in a heap, which would suggest Paul Townend is stacking them up in front. Blue Lord towards the back. He's flat to the boards now, looking like a horse that wants a bit further. Ballyadam is the only one that goes to challenge Appreciated as they round off the home turn. But I think when they get up to the winning post and you look at the rest of them, Appreciated's kept at it really well. Ballyadam has run with more credit. Blue Lord, good run. But Hook Up is the one that, for the Mayor's Novice Hurdle, was the one I kind of took out of it.
Yeah, I agree. It's her jumping though, isn't it? It's not very good.
She's getting better.
Do you think? Because she's interesting if she is.
She is, and her race will be on the new course in Cheltenham, and jumping, just not as much of it. There's the same number of hurdles. I understand that before you start telling me. Not you, everybody else. But it's the last 7 furlongs that the jumping is of less relevance.
Yeah, I think she ran a really eye-catching race against the run of things here, and she did really well to get involved at the final hurdle, I think. And yeah, my reaction to this was that the gap between Ballyadam and Appreciate It in the anti-post market for the Sky Bet Supreme is too big for me. I think Appreciate It is a bit too short and Ballyadam's a bit too long. I think they should be close together.
Yeah, and definitely when you think that you're going to be going to a sharper track, yeah, I wouldn't disagree.
Okay, let's move on to the 2 mile 6 race that Galliard du Mesnil won. This was really interesting. I think, again, we learned plenty.
Yeah, he did. Lots to learn from it. Galliard du Mesnil was competitive. A lot of horses lined up across the track. Statler and Gentleman's Game were the two to go forward. Ashdale Bob makes a mistake at the second, who obviously we saw falling in Naas. And at the third hurdle, Galliard du Mesnil is just settled behind the pace, but jumping really strongly. Cape Gentleman, you see him starting to hang as they get to the fourth hurdle. He threw away his chance doing that. And then you get down to the ninth hurdle, which was the third last. Gentleman's Game makes a mistake and is a bit awkward behind. Now, Mouse Morris has warned about backing him for Cheltenham. He's not certain to go there. Statler was in front, but if you look at the overhead shot from 3 out to 2 out, you see how well Galliard du Mesnil is going, because Paul Townend is able to sit, wait for the gaps to open and keep tucking in to take gaps on his inside. He must feel he's that much horse underneath him. It's a beautiful run through on Gentleman's Games inside, away from 2 out, up into the home straight, where he comes and picks off Starter, who keeps going well. And your tip, Lydia, Fakira, looks like he's crying out for the extra 2 furlongs of the Albert Battle.
I know. Finally, a long price horse. I'm really pleased with that. I think he shaped really well for it. I thought Statler shaped pretty well for the Albert Bartlett as well, for that matter.
Yeah, both looked like they'd be the right races for them. But there was more races. We had Musselburgh as well for novice hurdlers, and a couple of performances up there. And I think the 2 mile novice hurdle in Musselburgh, won by Bareback Jack, was a really steadily run race. And I don't think it suited Third Time Lucky at all. And I think when you look at the Musselburgh race, as they approach the second hurdle, Bareback Jack is in front. But just look how free Belfast Banter is in the blue and white, Third Time Lucky in the black and white, Tommy's Oscar in the green, and Sextant on the outside in the striped sleeves. They're all so free in behind Bareback Jack, who got the absolute run of the race and was able to quicken when he wanted off the home. He quickened into the home turn, Brian Hughes, and got around the bend and got them all flat out very quickly. He only jumped okay down the straight, the winner, but he still jumped better than Third Time Lucky, who gave away any chance he had with a sloppy jump at the last. I think it was a race that was run completely against what Third Time Lucky would want, and he has to improve, but you couldn't just say that's him either.
No, I agree, and I think he ended up he lost his back legs really quite badly, didn't he, at the last?
Yeah, he did at the last. Yeah,
it would have been close, I think, between them
He would, and that would have been a good performance to win such a slowly run race at such a fast track. And we also had a stay-in novice hurdle up there as well. 3 under through 5 of Paul Nichols's and Fantasticus. Both looked like strong enough stairs, and it looked an even enough gallop. But if you see them passing up by the winning post the first time, they're both in nice positions. But if you roll it on a circuit, the 2 you like have come to the fore. The 3 under through 5 and Fantasticus down the back straight, they're both jumping well. But when they jump the 4th last, they're the only 2 horses that are still on the bridle, and it becomes a dead match into the home straight. 3 under through 5 makes a mistake at the second last. They both jump the last well, but 3 under through 5 just grounds it out better than Fantasticus. And yeah, I could see him heading to the Albert Park in what looks an open race. I mean, we're picking out Statler, who was 3rd in Leopardstown, and Fakira, who was 4th. So Paul Nichols and his team are entitled to think they have a chance in that race.
And Bareback Jack, just going back to him, he was flashing his tail under pressure as well. I think Donald McCain is thinking about going to Aintree again with him. I
think he got a very, very good ride, and I wouldn't be rushing away to invest in him in the Supreme.
Okay. We should mention Boot Hill. Bad news about him. You remember we were talking about Harry Fry's potential winner for the Supreme. Unfortunately, he's got a niggling problem with a splint, and Harry Fry has announced that he is out for the rest of the season. He had
that, and we talked about him. It just hasn't come right, and that's the thing with splints. They can settle down quite quickly or go the other way, and it's an injury that'll heal in time. It's just a rather frustrating one for Connections.
But Harry had declared Metier for the Betfair hurdle. There's any number of novice hurdles that were declared for that race.
Yeah, and Metier is the one that really interests me in light of a tilt at the Supreme. Anyway, I loved him in the Talworth, and I think he could be a big runner in the race.
So whenever Newbury run it, and there's a possibility for Sunday week as well for that, we'll look into that race in some more detail. Solarina, the Solarina Novices Hurdle for mares was run at Fairyhouse on Monday. You mentioned this earlier in this section. This was won by Rosie's Hollow, turning over Royal Kahala and Gulwars.
Yeah, I think it ties into, we're looking at Hookup in the Chanel Farm and Novice Hurdle. So it was a decent run race, but the 3 real fancy ones, Rosie's Hollow, Royal Kahala, Galwise, as they pass up past the winning post of the circuit in the first circuit, they're in the line. Rosie's Hollow and JP McManus's colours, Royal Kahala in the middle and Galwaz on the outside. But a really good jump at the 4th last by Rosie's Hollow puts her in front of the other 2, and she's almost like she gets into position A, whereas Royal Kahala is back and Galwaz ends up back. Galwaz even ends up back behind her. Around into the home straight, Royal Kahala moves up on the outside, but Rosie's Hollow gets the dream run through between horses to the second last, and she's just gone on them, and they come down the straight pretty much in that order then. Rosie's Hollow in front, Royal Kahala second, Galwaz third. I think looking at the 3 of them, the 3 really good fillies, but I think you turn the race around tactically and you can move the placings around a little bit. I think whichever one of them gets the run on the day, I didn't think any one of them was miles clear of the other. I thought they were just 3 fillies the way the race panned out, ended up in the finishing position.
So does that sound like in your head you're putting Hookup ahead of Gulwars from a Willie Mullins perspective?
I was a huge Royal Kahala fan, watching her beating Hookup in Fairyhouse over 2-2. I think back in trip would suit Hookup. But I think there's 4 strong fillies, and it's definitely a race I'd be watching and not investing in.
Those with a keen eye on the clock, and I don't know why you were clock watching, it was a really good show. But anyway, we'll notice that we don't really have time to do previews. We've decided to trust the weather forecasters, haven't we, Ruby, and concentrating on reviewing what happened, all those important races, rather than looking ahead.
Want to give us something maybe to talk about next week as well, Lydia?
That is absolutely true. A couple of things I do need to talk to you about, though. York Hill, it's been announced by Dave Armstrong and Lee Westwood, who own him, that he's got a tendon injury in his right leg, and they've decided to retire him.
Yeah, he was a great horse, but when I really needed him on the 16th of March 2017, as unreliable as he was very reliable that day.
A fantastic comeback as well in the rehearsal chase, and one of my cult heroes, this horse. And he's got a retirement paddock overlooking the back of the Cheltenham course with Ben Hasty, who's the head groundsman there, and Rachel Neller. So we wish
that'll suit him on the right hand side of the track and all.
Usually he wants to be on the left hand side of the track. He's going to be wanting to be over there. And I've also got a tweet from Mike Bell to put to you. I enjoy Road to Cheltenham with Lydia Hislop and Ruby Walsh, but Ruby terrifies me sometimes. My Latin teacher used to stand in front of me, arms folded like Ruby, same expression on his face after my irregular verb declension efforts. Lydia at least looks amiable.
On that note, I will go back to homeschooling my kids, so.
Should we do our... Hold up, and I'll try and look amiable. Bye.